In this video, we'll be drawing this Lady Annabella Lee Mine Fluorite in real time using colored pencil and soft pencil on Pastelmat sanded paper. So let's get ready. What you're going to need is your art supply kit, which you can order through my website, and the link is in the description. Your colored pencils, charcoal or a black pastel pencil, erasers, your blending stumps, and a paper towel. The upcoming audio is a bit choppy as it was edited from a live streaming video. Thanks for your understanding. Woohoo! All right, let me just get my space set up so everyone can see. All right, so I've got my sketch ready. I've got my colored pencils, my blending sticks. I've got my charcoal or my soft pastels over here on the side. And I've got my little sandpaper. So if you ordered kits, you should have all these little items with you. My little swatch of Pastelmat paper ready to go. And, of course, my reference photo. And I actually have the real specimen here, which is very small in real life, but really beautiful zoning. Just wanted to show that off. It's our inspiration for today. Get your supplies handy, get your sketched Pastelmat or your paper and your colored pencils, blending stumps, get all your goodies in place. And we're gonna just crack on. Make sure all your pencils are nice and sharp to start, because they will get whittled down as we go. All right, I'm moving a little slow today. I was up digging rocks all day yesterday, so but I feel good. It was a good dig day, and I'm so excited to be drawing. I actually haven't been drawing. I haven't drawn in a while, so today I'm also getting my fill of artwork. So, all right, let's get our sketches ready. I've got mine in place. We've got all of our colored pencils. I don't know if anybody had a chance to do some practicing with their little swatch of Pastelmat for those of you who ordered kits. But I'd like to just set my sketch aside and let's do just a little bit of practice. There are some tips I want to give you before we dive right in, just about realism in general and how to achieve that realistic look when it comes to drawing minerals and really anything. There's some really easy things to think about when you're approaching realism. A lot of people, when they go to try to draw something realistically, they're really like looking at the outline of a shape and usually starting there with some sort of outline, which, you know, we did do a sketch, but we're going to pretty much be covering this entire sketch. We're not going to be using sharp lines in that way. And with realism, you really want to observe very closely when you're looking at your photo reference, and you want to really draw what you see and not what you assume is there. And you'll understand more when I start going through the drawing how I'm really just picking apart every element of my reference photo. I'm not looking at this as like one shape that I need to get the structure of. I'm looking at it as tiny individual, basically like color blotches. So you just want to work in every little element slowly but surely, and you're going to be working in layers. So really slowly building layers. You don't want to go in with a harsh line. You don't want to go in super heavy-handed, because that will just wreck the realism look of your drawing, and it really messes with the texture of the colored pencil. So this is the actual drawing I did to practice for the demo, and you can see how soft it looks, right? If I were to go in with my colored pencil super harsh, let's do a little test here. So say I went in, let me zoom in a little bit so we can get a little better detail. All right, so if I go in and I just push as hard as I can, right? I'm just filling in that color really, really firmly with my hand here. I'm pressing nice and firm, and I'm working in a circular motion. So that's something as well you'll want to keep in mind. You will always be working in a circular motion. That way it gets to be a very smooth finish versus, so there I did a circular motion, right? if I go in and I'm doing these lines like this, it's gonna give me a very harsh look. It's not gonna end up being super smooth, and it can actually damage the paper if you're using a really harsh line through like this. Say you wanna go over it with another color, you've already ruined the tooth of that paper by pressing super firmly. So the tooth of the paper is basically the texture that is put into a paper so that it can hold multiple layers, which is why we work in small layers, and why paper is made with texture is so that it can support multiple layers, so you can build your colors, mix your colors much better. So you can see here, that blue line I put in harshly, I wasn't able to get any color over that with another color because I'd already filled up the tooth of the paper. This is my first sample where I pressed really hard. You can see how it's waxy and shiny like that. That's something we want to avoid. So above here, I was slowly starting to build layers. You can see how there's no shine to that, right? And you know, there will be a little bit of shine to your final image just because that's the nature of colored pencil. It's waxy, so it will give a little bit of a shine, but you can see it's really hard to pick up that shine on the final drawing that I did. So that's kind of the goal we're going for today. We don't want a waxy, shiny surface when we're done. So we're gonna build our layers slowly. So let's do a quick practice together. Grab any two colors that you want from your colors that you picked out. Let's see, I'll do a fade. So I'll do this sort of light minty green and this yellow. Okay, so go ahead and pick out two colors. I'm gonna check the comments, make sure I'm not missing anything. Looking good. All right. So then we're gonna just start really slowly and really carefully. And a tip for you to avoid pressing too hard on your paper is to move your hand back on the pencil. So I'm gonna hold my hand way back. You know, your natural instinct is to probably hold it really close up. That's gonna put even more pressure on your pencil. So you wanna kind of release control a little bit. Move your hand back on the pencil. Let me zoom out a little more so you can see how I'm holding this. Okay. So versus this, we're gonna scooch it back, okay? Hold it on the back of the pencil. All right, and then we're gonna just start in nice and slow and easy. I'm not pressing hard, I'm barely pressing at all, in fact. I'm just kind of letting the pencil rest against the paper and do the work for me. So I'm gonna start in a very small circular motion. And I'm just gonna mimic this stripe up here. I'm just gonna do a little strip of color. So just take one of your two colors and slowly work it in small circular motions. You're not pressing hard. It's gonna look kind of gritty to start, but that's what we want. To get to a realism finish on a drawing, it's gonna start ugly, okay? It's not gonna be pretty until pretty much the very end. So that's something to remember too when doing realism is don't get yourself disheartened. Just keep working at it, keep slowly building layers, and it will all start to show through. All right, so just one like thinner layer with that circular motion. So let me show you. See, it's gonna look kind of gritty. We're still working on building up those layers and filling in the tooth of the paper. All right, so just do one little half line there, and then I'm gonna come at it from this direction and fill this green in the same way we did the yellow. So again, don't hold your pencil up close to the tip. Bring your hand back and let the pencil do the work. You're just doing a circular motion, real soft and even. We want it to fill evenly. We also, you can do a circular motion, but you can be going like this. That we don't want, because then again, you're filling it in unevenly. You're gonna cause little streaks and circles and lines through your drawing, and it's not gonna look so smooth. So this is not the kind of circles I mean very tiny and soft, okay? Oh my gosh, Graham, I wish I had a really big pencil for the murals because, I mean, I'm not a painter. So, I mean, I do watercolor, but I'm new to painting, definitely new to painting realism. So yeah, if you can find any, you let me know. It's very different for me to be doing acrylics. But yes, I have been practicing my acrylic painting in prep for my mural project coming up in December. I'm very excited for that. And yeah, it's going to be the largest artwork I've ever done, for sure. And probably the biggest challenge, just all the factors. All right, so I'm still just filling this side with the green, really slow and carefully. And now I'm going to start to blend them together. So I'm bringing in a little green into the yellow here. Not changing my formula, still the small circles, okay? You can see as the colors start to overlap how that tooth is getting filled in a little bit more. Oh, let me zoom in. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay, so you can see here where the colors are intersecting, it's starting to fill in. Now I'm going to take the yellow again and extend that further into the green, just a little bit. We're just kind of blending, trying to get this blend nice and smooth. And we're not rushing. There's no rushing in realism. That'll just give you a mess in the end. And as you're blending two colors together, you want to go really light as you start to combine the two colors. Because again, we're trying to get this to be a seamless gradient from one color to the next. So I'm just going back over with my pencils, blending those colors. Now I've got one good layer here, so I'm going to use my blending stump. And I'm going to just use the same circular motions and blend real lightly. I'm not pressing too hard. Blend those colors into the Pastelmat paper. Same goes for your regular paper. Gently. And while this demo today I am showing on the sanded Pastelmat paper, you can use regular paper. It'll be pretty much similar techniques. If you are using a white paper, however, instead of drawing in the white parts, you will be avoiding the white. So any part of the reference that has white in it, you're going to avoid coloring those parts. The one reason I love Pastelmat is that you can build your highlights on top of your darks, which is something that you cannot do on regular paper. And you'll see as we go along. So as we're blending this with our blending stump, you can really see how that is smoothing out the color so nicely. So let me show you how much smoother that is now. And that's just our first layer. See how when I did the first layer up here, it created a real waxy look because I was pressing really hard and trying to force it. So here's our nice smooth single layer. How's everybody doing so far? Did everybody get a little blending swatch? And I'll be pausing to give people time to catch up. Yeah, show me a thumbs up or a heart or something on the side. Let me know you're doing good. Doing great, yay! All right, great. We're just gonna do a couple little more practices and then we're gonna dive into the drawing because we're gonna learn most of this as we go along. All right, so let's just try putting a highlight over our blending. I just wanna show you how that works on Pastelmat. Because with paper, it's not gonna be the same. It's gonna be a little trickier. So just take your white pencil. Now this part is where we get to break the rules a little bit. So if we're adding fine details, like let me show you, for example, on the drawing that I did to prep. Okay, So all these little outlines and highlights here, these little dots, these are all very intentional, and they come at the very end of the drawing. So we will be building all the colors together, and then we'll add sort of the crisper lines and the little highlights and details at the very end. So this is where you get to actually press a little harder with your pencil. So just to get a feel of it, I just want you to, you can now move up your pencil. See, I'm holding nice and firmly towards the tip because I'm gonna get my details in. And let's just put a few lines across our blended gradient, just to see how well they show up. Just to give you a feel. So this step's going to come at the very end of our drawing. It will work for any color. So if we have some, a lot of the times on my mineral drawings, there'll be tiny little speckles in a mineral with white or black. And so I'm always doing those details at the end. So it's good to try them both just to see how well they show up. I'm just going to do a little black line and some dots. Using a medium pressure. You don't have to use a super firm pressure on the Pastelmat because it is a sanded texture and it just automatically grips the pencil. So, just to show you how well details can go over those layers. So there's our little swatch. All right, I mean, I think we're ready to get started. Let's dive in. I'm so ready. How's everyone else feeling? Ready to get going? Okay, yeah, let's do it, Chelsea, woohoo. Okay, so this is step one. This is what we're gonna do first off. So my favorite way to start a realism drawing, a mineral realism drawing, is with the highlights. So I love placing my highlights. A lot of artists will probably do highlights at the end and think this sounds really backwards. But for me and our medium, and especially with using the sanded paper, I like to lay down my highlights first. It just gives me a further map as to where I'm going, and it shows me the places that I really want to preserve and add all the finishing shine at the end. So just as a reference, this is what we're starting with. So let's get our white pencils out. If you are drawing on white plain paper, you will avoid this step because we want to keep the white of your paper. Coloring white pencil on white paper doesn't seem to really work very well, so I would suggest preserving your highlights versus coloring them in. So for those of you with our Pastelmat or our sanded paper, let's get our white pencils and begin with step one. Fill in those highlights. All right, so again, we're just going to all the way back on our pencils, right? Wherever's comfortable, but just avoid being right up on the tip. So at least halfway up the pencil or even further back. All right, now you can see my sketch. It's not that cute, you know, it doesn't need to be cute. And you can see the grid still on my drawing. That's all going to be covered up. The beauty of Pastelmat paper is you can pretty much cover up soft pencil with a bunch of layers, and you'll never know it was there. If you did use like a graphite pencil, you might want to erase those lines before you get started, just to keep the canvas clean. Graphite will tend to show through like a soft pastel or the charcoal that we're going to use for the background. But this is a practice, so I don't want anyone to feel like super pressured to be, you know, perfect. We're all learning together, so. And this is, I have not done a lot of art with, a lot of mineral realism with colored pencils, so I'm also still learning. So that's why this is really fun today, because we're all kind of getting a feel for this. So let's start with our top highlight here. We're gonna start with this section here, okay? We're gonna do the same technique we just practiced. Slow, steady circles. Staying within your sketch, but not being too fussy about the sketch. Just try to stay within the lines that you've laid down. And we can erase, we can definitely erase if we go a little bit outside the lines. Oh no! See, we can fix it. Pastelmat can be a little tricky. It does, you know, it gets a little marked up as you're using it. But again, we're going to fill in that background, so we're not going to know any of that happened later. So see, I'm just working that space really slow. And we're going to just slowly use those small circles all the way up to the edge of your lines there. Make sure you guys can see. Oh, bye Jessie. Travel safe. Thanks for joining. All right, and when you hit this little pyramid here, we're gonna skip that. Don't fill that in yet. Okay, this part here, don't fill that in just yet. We're gonna go around that. So fill the white in all around it, around both planes of that pyramid, because we don't want that to be solid white. Again, we're drawing what we see, not what we assume is there. Like you might assume, well, that's all highlighted, so let's just color it all white. But really, if you look closely at it, you can see it's actually a gray in here, like a cool gray, right? It has a little bit of white there. There's also some gray texture on the back here. So these are things that your eye will get trained to see once you practice realism a lot. When I first started, you know, I would fill in what I see, but you know, the more you look at a mineral or a mineral photo, the more details that pop up. It seems like there's endless details hiding, like tiny little shadows and highlights, little hair-like, you know, shapes, little specklings of, you know, texture. So you really want to pay attention to all those tiny little things. So we're just filling that shape in, small circles. I was learning some realism tricks on YouTube, and unfortunately I don't remember the artist's name right now, but he does these beautiful portraits, and he said something that really rang true to me, was just about being patient with your drawings. I'm a very like impatient person when it comes to like creating something. I've learned a lot of patience through realism, and I think it's helped me a lot, but when I was more of a pen and ink artist, I was always in a hurry to get something down. Like I always wanted to start something and get it done right then and there. Same with anything really in my life. When I used to sew clothes and stuff, I would start a project and really want to see it through right then and there. And I learned from realism to really embrace sort of the slow pace and the meditative quality of it. And you kind of just want to just breathe through it and just take it one small spot at a time. And it really can become a very soothing practice. So we're doing one layer at a time. Don't feel the need to go back over this white yet. It's going to look grainy and it's going to look kind of fugly, but that's okay. That's what we want right now. This is the ugly stage, remember? Realism always starts ugly. Fact number 1 of realism drawing. So don't get discouraged either. That can definitely happen with realism, because you're putting in so much work and you've been spending, you know, an hour or something on one spot and you're still looking at it like, this doesn't look right. It'll all come together at the very end. So now I've moved on to this second highlight here, this area right here. Just filling that in slowly. Let me show you the step just on its own. So this is step 1 we're completing now. I'm moving on to this section of the white highlight. Oh, hey James, how's it going? Good to see you. Chelsea. How's everyone doing? Getting your highlights in? Let me know if you have any questions or you're confused. Patrick, welcome. We're just filling in some highlights here on our Annabella Lee Mine Fluorite. And we're being very patient with ourselves. And once you get used to this technique, you know, it's going to take some time to get used to the feel of the pencil. And see, do you see me right now? I'm way up on my pencil, like I told you guys not to be. So I noticed that, now I'm going to bring my pencil back. It really does make a difference, keeping it smooth. But it does take some getting used to. So I can see that my grid is sort of showing up through my pencil here. But don't worry, we're going to keep working those layers. Try to cover that up. If you're worried about it showing through, again, what do we have? Our handy erasers to keep us sane here. So you can go in, if you got a little grid that's kind of getting in your way, don't worry about the grid on the outside per se. You can kind of erase those grid lines just to free up the tooth of the paper if it's hindering you at all. Sometimes I like to do that too, just so I don't see it. It's not a distraction. So I'm going to do that real quick while you guys continue on your highlights. I'm going to kind of erase it from there too, which I'll have to put that white back there, but that's okay. There's no wrong way to get there. Right? Like I said, we're all learning together today. All right. So I'm going to fill that in where I erased gently because I don't want to disrupt the smoothness there. All right. Oh, hey Patrick, yeah, this is a specialty paper. It's called Pastelmat. It's a sanded textured paper, mostly made for pastel pencil or pastel in general. Today we're doing colored pencil with it, which a lot of artists have found to be super awesome because it's sanded and it holds a lot of layers. So it's great for realism because you can slowly work up your layers and do really great color mixing. It's the Clairefontaine brand Pastelmat paper, if you're interested in looking that up. So I'm kind of leaving a little space here because there's some other colors in that area. Right here we got some purples and blues that we're going to fill in. So I don't want to fill that tooth in too much. In fact, I think I went a little bit too heavy there. So I'm going to come in with my eraser here. And just lightly erase. Looking at my reference. So always one eye on the reference, one eye on your drawing. It's another tip. You want to really be looking at your reference, back at your drawing as you're going, or you will lose your way, like I just did a little bit. But nothing's permanent until we're done. All right, so I'm still just doing my soft initial layers. I'm going to go over to this highlight here. This one right down here, okay? And just be loose with it. Don't make a harsh outline around any of these. Just be loose with it. You can see how the colors blend seamlessly from one to the other. That's what we're going to try to do with our pencils. And you know, you can see my initial drawing. You know, it's not exactly the same. There's some differences, right? And that's okay. Same with the colors. If your colors aren't exact, it's all right. You just want to find the ones that are closest and then be consistent with those throughout the drawing. And I promise you'll be happy with the results. Oh, you're welcome, Patrick. Thanks for asking. That was a great question. How's everybody doing? Do you guys need a little more time to catch up to where I'm at? I don't want to go too fast, but I also don't want to be too slow. You can always pop off and do a giveaway again while y'all catch up. But let's get through the highlights first, and then we'll do another giveaway. So next I'm going to add these little funky highlights in. Okay. And on my reference, it's these right here. For those of you who are looking at your reference, these little highlights. And if it's not perfect, if it's not exactly in the right spot, don't worry about it. Roll with it. It's all going to come together in the end. And once you combine all your elements, you won't even know that it's different than the reference photo. This is why we work slow and we build it up, because if we put something in the wrong spot, we can still correct it at this stage. And sometimes it doesn't even matter if it's not perfect, because minerals aren't perfect. Well, some seem to be, but you know, they all have something going on. Some little inclusion, but I think that's what makes them even more interesting. All right, so we're almost there with stage 1. And see, it's still ugly. It's not looking cute yet, but we're gonna get to cute. Don't worry. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can kind of see that. All right, so how's everybody doing on their highlights? Do we got our little base layer on our highlights in? All right, so next step with that, let's go ahead and blend those out with our blending stump. Another reason I do like to start with the highlights is because then I can use my blending stump right away and it won't have other colors on it yet. If your blending stump does get a little dirty and you want to go back over white highlights, you can take a small scissor. Let me show you. You can take a scissor and trim the end off, like so. This is a way to revive your blending stump. And then you don't really want it to be too sharp on the edge. So then you can take that sandpaper and just lightly give it a little buff on there, and that will soften that tip back up. And it's all good as new. Just a tip, I know some of you ordered kits, you got a small blending stump, but it only has one end on it, so that's a way to revive that. So I'm going in with my circular motion and blending that out. Going over all those highlights again with my blending stump. You can see how it instantly got much smoother. Oh yeah, I got some tasty giveaways today. I got a little excited. I was like, let's give away one of everything. I don't know. Why not? I do have a giveaway draw at the end here for one lucky winner who ordered an art kit. I have a pretty big giveaway, which will be revealed later. So we're almost done with this first layer of highlights. I'm gonna blend this out, and then, believe it or not, we're gonna go back over those one more time. We will go in at the very end and do one final coating of the white, but now we're just gonna go in again. We're gonna go a little bit faster this time. You don't have to go faster. You go at whatever pace feels comfy for you. But it is good training to kind of, all right, we did that once. Now let's go over it, not, you know, crazy fast. And and you want to keep your pencils nice and sharp. A way you can keep them sharp while you're drawing on Pastelmat is just to slowly rotate the pencil as you're drawing, and it will naturally sharpen the edge for you. So I'm rotating. You see how I'm rotating it? I do a little bit, and then I rotate it slightly. And then I continue through. And the sanded texture of the paper will sand down those pencil tips for you. And if you want to sharpen a little faster, you can take that piece of sandpaper I included in your kits, and you're going to just kind of do exactly what we've been doing, but with the sandpaper it's going to give you a faster sharp. So I just do circular motions while rotating the pencil, and it's going to sharpen that edge up nice and sharp for me. But if your pencils start to get super dull, go back to your pencil sharpener and get them all nice and sharpened up. It's important to keep your pencils sharp as you're going. So you can see on this second layer how that texture is starting to fade away. It's starting to look a lot smoother. And if you're having trouble with your grid lines peeking through, you can use a little bit more pressure just right over those areas, and that should cover that up. But again, this is just a sample. This is just something that, you know, we're just trying it out. We're getting used to it. It does not have to be perfect. Art is not perfect. Perfection is boring. We don't want that. Not in my class. Okay, so I'm going to actually, now that we've got our second layer on that top section, I'm going to just put a little bit of highlight into that little pyramid at the top, okay? Let me zoom in. So I'm just kind of bringing it out a little bit. I'm putting a tiny highlight right on the edge. I'm not drawing anything inside of that front plane there. I'm going to draw that second angle. And I'm using a very light touch here, very light. Just sort of dabbing on the color. And I'm going to just sort of speckle in the white because I have a little gray there. So I don't want it to be solid white. I'm just putting a little white texture. See that? I will be adding color in there over the white, but I want to maintain sort of those little shadows here. Very subtle there right now. We want to maintain those. So already that is starting to come to life. It's funny how just like one or two little things will start to make it pop. Okay. How we all doing? Everybody doing okay? Yep, thumbs up, love it. Good, good. All right, we're gonna keep going, keep going. So we're just pumping up those whites. See how my edge here on the Fluorite is kind of blurry? That's okay. We want that. We don't want to go in with a hard line and outline that. That's gonna wreck our soft feel and our nice edges. You'll see when we go in with the background at the very end, we're gonna crisp off those edges with our black to really make the Fluorite pop out. Doing good? Good, Carla, yay! All right, so let's move. We're just going in the same order as we did the first layer, right? And see my pencil's getting a little dull. I'm gonna remember to back off the tip. Back it off. Hey, Matthew. Yeah, you sure can learn how to draw Fluorite. That's one thing I really love about doing mineral art is that I get to bring pieces into my home that I otherwise would never be able to own or, you know, have around. You know, I can take some legendary mineral that you know, is in some museum and I can draw it and have it, sort of have it in my collection. Just remember, don't forget, you're moving in a very small circular motion, filling in that tooth nice and slow. Don't get ahead of yourselves. I would say don't get excited, but I do want you to be excited. So again, my grid is showing through. I probably should have used a darker pencil, or I mean a lighter pencil, but it's okay because I got my white pencil here to correct it. I'm just gonna use a little more pressure and just say, hey, go away, line. You're not invited. And we'll be adding a little bit of texture. There's some really subtle things going on in this white, like this little mark here, some here, these transitions here. I'm going to take a moment and just sharpen up my pencil here. It's feeling a little short for my liking. All right, so much better. I love a good sharp pencil. It's amazing what a sharp pencil will do. The reason we like to keep our pencils sharp, especially for a sanded paper like this, is because the teeth here, right, the grip is so small that if you have a really blunt, dull pencil, it's not going to get into those little tiny nooks and crannies. So I've got my super sharp pencil, which is going to really glide into all those little tiny textures and give us a much smoother finish. And the reason we back off the pencil is so that we don't then just go in and crush our texture of our paper. So with a sharp tip and a lot of pressure up front, you're going to end up damaging your paper. So again, back it off, sharp tip, slow circular motions. I know this is kind of the slower, more boring part, the ugly before the beauty, but it's going to be worth it. And I'm going back in those little extra highlights here. And what I'm going to do with these, since they aren't divided specifically by like a sharper line, is I'm going to fade out the edges. So you can see how my first layer looks a little gray compared to the second layer I'm putting in. I'm going to leave a little bit of the grayness and not fill that tooth in very much there, because I want my other colors I lay down to blend into that. And since these are like, you know, really loose blobs of color, we want a soft flow from one color to the other. We don't want sharp lines. There's no sharp lines in realism. Because if you really think about it, I mean, while this fluorite does have sharp edges, right? There's no outline to it. One line continues as you go around the specimen. So that's the reason we don't want to do like a black outline. That will ruin our realism look. It's a continued plane, even if we can't see it. So I'm doing the same with these internal highlights, trying to keep a soft edge as I fill the white in the center. And this highlight here is actually like a series of little lines. I don't know if you can see that. If you look close at your own reference, you can see it's not just a blob of color. There's actually little lines of color. So we don't want to press too hard on this highlight, because at the very end we're going to want to add those little white lines. I'm just going to add a little bit more oomph to it. with the white, but I'm not going to press very hard. I'm going to keep it a little bit loose and kind of start to go in the direction of those lines. So I'm adding that texture in. See that? How I kind of put those shapes in? Just to lay it out ahead of time. Because this center part is going to have a lot of textures, a lot of details at the end. So this highlight's pretty bright right in here, so I'm going to brighten that up, fading out into those gray edges. Okay. All right. We're picking up the pace a little bit. I like it. So I'm going to go in with my blending stump again for layer number 2, and we're going to soften it up. Soften that up. Don't press too hard. You'll lose some of your color if you press too hard. We're just gliding it across there. And believe it or not, we're going to add one more layer to this, but we're going to wait until the very end. We're going to start building up our other colors. I'm going to just lightly glide across those little lines I made there. Okay, let me just zoom in a little. Yeah, see, I don't know why I can't seem to get rid of this little line here. But that's probably my mistake. I probably pressed a little too hard when I was doing my grid line on there. But, you know, you live and you learn. This is how we learn. So again, don't feel bad if your grid line's showing through. I'm used to pastel pencil, like I mentioned earlier, and pastel will cover pretty much anything you put on Pastelmat. So, something I'm learning about colored pencil. Doesn't cover as well as pastel pencil when there's another line below it. And I am blending these, even though I did put a little detail in this highlight, it's okay. I'm blending it out a little bit, but the sort of the texture is still showing through. With pastel pencil, I don't actually use blending stumps. They will remove more pastel than is helpful, so I typically just use more pastel pencil to blend, or I'll use my finger really lightly. We will be blending with our fingers at the very end to do the charcoal or pastel background, so we will be getting our hands a little bit dirty. It's gonna be fun. I'm just going in here to correct those grid lines a little bit. This is not something you have to do unless you are noticing your grid lines are sort of showing through. So I'm just coming up on the edge of my pencil here, and I am using a little bit of pressure. Not too hard still, but a little more pressure because of the way I'm holding the pencil. And just kind of filling over those little peekaboo lines that I don't care for. Okay, we are like done with stage 1, I'd say. We've got our skeletal stage, which is what I like to call this stage. We've got our highlights on. That's half the battle. Okay, so I'm going to give you a preview of step 2 here. Let's see. Step 2, we're going to start in with our dark teal color. So you should have like a dark kind of tealy green blue color. We're going to put in all of these greens, these sort of darker greens. There is some black and purple in this, but we're going to just start with the dark greens here. All right, so I'm going in with my dark green, and while there's a lot of color variation here, you can see how light, it goes from light to dark, from yellow to green, green to blue. These are all going to blend together in the end. So we're just going to start by marking out the main areas that we see need this dark teal color. So again, this is kind of the end goal we're going for in this stage. Filling in this section, putting some green blue in here, here, and right underneath here. And I like to sort of start at the most concentrated parts of the color. Like if I know I'm gonna wanna blend this color out to yellow over here, I'm not gonna start by layering it here. I'm gonna start here in the most concentrated area and then blend it out softly where I'm gonna add other colors. So again, with my pencil sharp, my hand backed away from the tip of the pencil, in we go. And you'll probably notice that the darker colors are blending a lot. They look a lot smoother to start than the white. That's because we have a kind of a darker background. So you're not going to see the texture or the tooth of the paper as much as you do through that white. That's one, I wouldn't say downfall, but one thing to note about colored pencil on Pastelmat is that it's going to have a little bit of a gritty texture and you just have to embrace it. It's just the nature of the beast. And it just takes a lot of patience and slowly layering to get it smooth. And if people are feeling brave, I would absolutely love to see your outcomes, either posted on your stories or your pages, and I will actually enter anyone who posts their results into another giveaway. So you can see, I mean, that's not the exact color that I'm using, but it's going to be just fine because we're going to mix some lighter colors into it to get closer to our reference photo. Again, like I said earlier, if it's not exactly the same colors, it's all right. You're going to decide that this is the green I'm using, this is the yellow I'm using, and you're going to just proceed knowing that those colors going to be blended and mixed to get you that final result. So now I'm going really light over here. I don't want this to become dark teal. I want to blend in some yellow and light green in this area later. Let me zoom in, sorry y'all. And I'm not going to worry so much about using the blending stump for a little bit. We're going to kind of use the pencils to do the blending for us when we start adding other colors to this. Remember, don't get ahead of yourselves. If I'm going faster than you are, just keep going, because we're going to be pausing for little giveaways here so folks can catch up. We're just filling in those dark teal greens. This area is going to get a lot of blues and purples and yellows all through it. So remember to stay light with your pencils. Got to leave some tooth for the other colors. And you know, if you printed your own references at home, it probably will come out a little bit different than mine. You know, the colors might look a little different. Just go with what you see. And since I know, like as I do, I see other colors coming in here, but I know that they're gonna wanna mix with this blue. So I'm gonna fill all of this up until this bottom corner pretty much in with this green blue for now, and we're going to add in more colors to blend. But real light. Go really light on those places that have other colors introduced so that it blends easier. See, I'm not rotating my pencil as I go like I should be to keep that tip sharp. So don't forget that. Oops, see, I went a little too far. I got a little excited. And I'm going to I'm going to back off this teal down here just a little bit. Make room for that yellow that pops in down there. Now let's see, where else are we going with this? We're going to go up here on the top of this plane. Just remember, you're looking at your reference and back to your drawing. Back to your reference and back to your drawing. It's a little dance. Eyeball dance. I'm going real light right here because this is going to have some light teal and some black, green. Okay, let's see. What else could we pop in there? There's some more teal right down in this corner. As you can see right here. And again, soft edges. Soft edges. I will go like a little firmer as I'm laying down the more saturated of this color. And then I'll kind of lighten up my touch and just kind of blend out the edges real soft. That almost to the point where you can't even see where it starts and where it stops. See how smooth that is? There's no edge there. And you can see I did stray onto my white a little bit there. Just take our white and correct that. And since this is a reflective surface, once we add all our details, that little blemish might just fit right in. So that's actually about all we need for that color. So go ahead and get your drawings to that stage. Okay, so we're gonna move on to step 3. Trying to kick it up here in full gear. So we're already at 4:25. Oh my gosh, we thought we would be done at 5. Okay, we're gonna keep going. So this is gonna be step 3. We're gonna put in our black color. So we're gonna put in all of our shadows and lowlights. So now the black I'm placing here is not supposed to be black in the end. It's really just to put some shadow underneath our purple color here. So don't freak out that we're putting black here. I do know that that's purple, but we're layering colors, right? So we want to be able to get this transition here from the light purple into the darks. So we're going to put a little black underneath there. All right. So get your black pencils. Now with the black, it does tend to get really waxy and shiny, so really, really pay attention to that light touch, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and start there in that little corner and go right up to that green that you laid down. And cover up your sketch lines. We don't want those showing in the end. They're just there as a nice little guide to lay down our color blocking, okay? So I'm filling it in pretty dark right here in this little crook, little corner. And then I'm just gonna softly blend it out, real soft, and not saturated through there. I'm just doing kind of the edges. I'm looking at my reference. You know, I see there's a little bit of darkening right here, so I'm gonna put just a little bit of black back there. It's gonna blend right into the purple. It's not gonna look black in the end. It's just to give us a little bit of a darker base because my purple's a little bit bright. And I don't want that. Okay, and I'm gonna jump up here. This has a bunch of black in it. And there's gonna be some purple coming in here as well. We're gonna do the purple next. Now this black comes right up to the edge here. You can see, comes right up to that edge. So don't be afraid to get that in there. Make that green and that black come together. And this is when you bring those two colors together, that's where you can do any corrections. Like if you went a little over on that green there, you're just gonna soften it out with the black. Is everyone having fun? I'm sure having fun. This is my first demo I've ever done, and it's super fun to be drawing with people at the same time. It's very special. Whew. Whew. All right. Okay, thank goodness. Like, no, I can't lose you now. Oh my gosh. I was like really heartbroken when it didn't work out the first time, but you know what? It's all good because we're here now. Okay, so I'm putting in some blacks, nice and soft back here. Nice and soft. I'll make sure I'm on the screen here. Just because I want my purples and blues to be darker. So this is not intended to be black in the end. This is just to bring a little shadow behind some other colors we'll be laying down soon. Okay, now this part's a little funky. It's like a little messy, right? It's like, where the heck do I even go with my black? So we're gonna start in the most concentrated area with the black, so right up in here, and we're gonna just do like we've been doing, circular blending, and then soften out the edges as you get to the edge of this sort of weird blobby shape. And then we'll put a little here and a little here. So I'm kind of just eyeballing it, right? Our old trick of look at the reference, back to the drawing, back to the reference, back to the drawing. And I'll like keep my pencil in motion while I'm looking at my reference and back, and it kind of like helps guide me in the direction I want to go. It's like with driving, you know, you're not looking right in front of your car when you're driving, you're looking a little bit far down the road. Kind of looking at the overall shape and just kind of feeling it as we go, using a little bit of our intuition to guide our pencils. And especially with these weird shapes like this that have a lot of texture and a lot of action going on, it doesn't have to be so perfect. This is another reason I really like to draw minerals that have a lot going on. Simple can be deceptively hard. So when I say having more texture and color can be easier, it's because it's easier to hide a mistake, you know, and it's easier to make that look real because there's so much going on. When I first started realism, I was like afraid of color because it's intimidating, right? You think, well, black and white's so easy, but then I just started to embrace it and practice, you know, a lot of color blending. I did take color theory in college, which was very helpful. But even without that, it's all about just using your eye and trying different things and having fun and experimenting. I would have never gotten where I am today with my artwork without taking some risks and failing a few times, you know. Not every drawing is a winner, and you just have to learn from that. What didn't go well, what didn't work, and adjust it the next time. Alright, so I've got my weird blobby shapes in. They're looking pretty good. See, it's still ugly, but it's starting to take shape, right? Trying to zoom out again. Another fun trick about realism is the further away you look at it, the more realistic it looks. So, for example, this is what we're gonna end up with today, right? This is where we're started, so not so cute. Pretty cute, but the closer you get, the less realistic it is. So see how as we get closer, you can really start to see the pencil marks and the texture. really see the pencil at work. That's okay, we want to be able to see that. And then as soon as you drop it away, suddenly it starts to look really 3D. Power of realism. So fun. Alright, how's everyone doing on their shadows? Are we almost caught up? Ready to add some more color? No rush now. Don't let me rush you. I get a little excited sometimes. We got some thumbs ups. Oh, good. I'm glad you're having fun, Chelsea. Yay. That's what I wanted. I wanted it to be fun. Life's too short not to have some fun. I'm just kind of going in here, adding a little bit of shadow where I see fit. I'll make sure I give you all enough time. Should we start adding some purple? Let's see what my next step was that I was supposed to follow. Oh, we were gonna add light green next, but I think we're gonna add purple. Let's break the rules. Let's go purple. Okay, I'm feeling purple. See, I just go with kind of what I feel like doing when I'm in a drawing. I mean, really, when I'm in a drawing and I'm like really absorbed in it, sometimes I'll be like drawing, right? And I'll have like all these pencils in my hand at once. I'll be doing this kind of a thing. I'll be like purple, green, yellow. So don't be afraid to be a little messy and a little bit crazy, because that's just how it is when you're trying to like get a bunch of different things happening all at once. So let's go in and try to add some of these pretty purples. Put this zoning in here, and there's like little flashes of purple here, here, a little bit through here, down here, and over here. We got this sort of beautiful rainbow effects going on. So let's get some purple going on here. Again, do make sure your pencils are sharp. If you need to take a second and get them nice and crispy again, please do that. And just take it slow, looking at your reference the whole time. Well, I guess you have to look at the screen a little bit too, but you know what I mean. Don't forget about your reference. Don't just follow what I'm doing. I want you to kind of start training your eye to follow a reference photo, because that's what we're learning today, right? Photorealism. Ooh, it's getting warm today. We're having like a late sort of heat wave in Washington right now. It's nice. Thought for a minute it was all over. We were gonna be stuck in the dark, rainy, cloudy, non-stop, sad time. Just nice and slow. Remember to breathe. I'm really good at not breathing, holding my breath. You know, being an anxious person. Which, to be honest, learning realism and sort of learning how to just slow down a little bit has been helpful for my anxiety, I'd say. Maybe soothing exercise if you're feeling stressed out or overwhelmed. Just sort of sit back and jive with some colored pencils. And you know, there's no real wrong move here. There's like a bunch of different colors happening, and they're kind of crashing together through here. There's a little bit of purple flashing through all these little parts. So just put some purple in there. Just splash a little bit here and there. the more you kind of add little bits of color or little details to your mineral drawings, the more realistic they will look. As we all know, staring at minerals, every change in light, shadow, angle brings out new things. And there's reflective surfaces, zoning, you know, it's just endless possibilities. So we can have a little fun, get a little creative. Like, photorealism doesn't have to be super strict, you know? It's about interpreting that photo. So that's how we put our own little style to things. It's like there's sometimes when I cannot get something to look exactly like the photo, and it'll drive me kind of nuts, but then I just have to remember that I'm putting my own interpretation on it. You know, I don't want it to be exactly the photo, because otherwise why would you even need my drawing, you know? So, I've added some purples. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep adding a little bit more. And then I'm going to have y'all go in again with that little blending stump. And we're going to smooth some of this purple out. Now there's some places here, like this little area here, where the purple kind of comes over to the white and looks kind of pink. So I'm going to embrace that, right? I'm going to be really light with the purple as it goes over the white and blend it into that black. And if I think that purple's a little too dark, I'll just come in with my white again. Really lightly, because I'm just trying to brighten that purple. I'm not trying to cover it with the white. I'm just brightening it up a little bit. Use your finger if you feel that's helpful to sort of smooth out little spots. I'm so used to using my finger, I forget that colored pencil likes a blending stump. Oh, you know, there's a little purple up in this corner too, reflecting. So I'm gonna get some in there too. And if it's looking kind of shiny and waxy, don't worry, it's all good. That's just the nature of colored pencil. You know, the lighter the touch, the slower the layers, the less waxy it will be, but in the end, you know, once you've got all your layers, there's gonna be a bit of a shine to it, and that's okay, because that's just the nature of a colored pencil. Same with graphite. Graphite will reflect in certain light and it will just blow out a drawing, and there's really no way to avoid that. So you just have to embrace that that is a characteristic of that medium. It's okay. Putting in some purples through here. There's lots of blues too, and I'm gonna layer over this purple with some cobalt blue. And it does, don't worry, it takes a while to kind of get used to like looking at a color and saying, you know, that's not blue, that's teal with purple mixed with like a cream to make those colors. So, you know, it just takes some practice and a little bit of knowledge about color theory to get used to blending your own colors. And experimenting. Experimenting is the key. Don't be afraid to rotate your canvas too. Sometimes it can be a lot easier to fill in an area if you just rotate your canvas around. Some angles are a little bit awkward. I'm just putting a slight purple base on this edge here. It's definitely not full purple in my reference, but it's going to have some blue over it, but it does have a warmer undertone, so I'm going to put a little purple as the base there. Oh, Janine, y'all good? Sorry, I just saw your comment. Everyone else's feed still going strong? Shoot me a little thumbs up. So starting to take some shape here. Got some fun colors going on. Yep, okay, good. Thank you. All right. Now it's starting to look a little more fun. All right, so let's see, what next? How's everyone doing on their purple layer? We got our base purples down. Can do a little bit of blending while I let people catch up here. I'm just going in real light, smoothing in the blacks with those purples. All good? Great. Thank you so much to those of you who have stuck around, and for everyone who bought kits. I mean, really, the support has been amazing. It's a bummer I wasn't able to stream it through COVID home gem shows, but I'll have to reschedule one through them sometime soon. I like our little art class today. It's so nice. I'm having a great time, and I really hope you all are too. All right, okay, we're kicking it up into full gear here. We are running a little long, so I hope everyone's all right. Hanging in there. We're getting there. We're getting there. We'll be done before you know it. Just wait and see. Okay, so I think what we're going to do next is come in with our light, sort of minty green, light teal. This one's called jade green, so appropriate. And we're going to start filling in all these lighter green areas, okay? So all these light greens. We want to avoid this sort of creamy highlight. So just kind of fill in the areas around that. Start working in the greens down in here in the blacks. And all through here, here, and down in here, okay? We're going to even add a little punch of this light green over this dark teal. You can see how it's a little bit brighter right there. So in we go, nice and light. And you'll notice in the areas that you kind of left the tooth alone on the paper, that it'll bring that light green out more. And the places where you have the dark teal are going to kind of absorb the green, which is great. That's what we want, because we're kind of blending the colors together to create our own green color here. And you'll see it pop. You'll see it blend really well here in a minute once we get our blending stumps on it. It's gonna look a little choppy right now. Just slowly work those colors over each other using a light touch and a nice sharp edge on that pencil. And then as I get into that more saturated area with the dark teal, I'm just gonna go real light. I don't wanna mess up the area I already did there, but I do need to lighten it and kind of mellow it out a little bit with this lighter green. And it gets pretty saturated in this corner, so I'm gonna kind of lay off the pencil a little bit there. And again, I'm looking at my reference. I see some lighter little flicker of color here. And I'm not being very precise. I'm just kind of laying the pencil down and letting it just add a little color here or there. It's almost, with realism, it's almost about letting go of control with your medium. You kind of have to let it lay where it wants to lay. Make sure I'm on the screen for you. We're going to be adding some like cream, warm creamy color to this area. And there is some kind of texture along the edges here on the reference photo. So, you know, interpret that as you will. You want to not make it super crisp and straight. So in my original drawing, you know, I just kind of brought in that edge just a little bit there. Now that I'm looking at the reference, I'd probably want to add a little more yellow right there, but, you know, it ended up being just fine without that. So again, minerals are so complex that those little things, they're not gonna mess up the big picture in the end. And at this stage, we're really just starting to blend all of our colors together. We're being a little brave and really starting to lay down all of our colors. Don't be afraid to kind of drop color here or there, blend it in with all the edges of the other colors. It's only going to help our picture in the very end here. And you may be thinking this green is looking a little bright, and it is. It's a little brighter than we want, but we're going to go back in with some other colors over it to soften it down. Just adding a little bit of color here and there where I see blues and greens. I'm going to blend this out with some blues and purples later. We're not looking at any of these little details. We're ignoring all these little lines, little wisps, and the little speckles and dots. All of that, you want to just pretend it's not there right now. All we're doing is looking at all the colors that rest in the background. We're just building that base. All those highlights will come at the very end, right on top of everything else. And don't be afraid to switch colors if you're like, oh, you know, this area could use a little more of that dark teal. This area here maybe could use a little more purple. As you're going, you'll start to notice little areas where maybe you want to add a little more of another color to. So don't be afraid to pick up other colors and start, you know, mixing it up, blending as you go. We can be brave. Can be brave and have more colored pencils in our hands. So I'm noticing this green here. It's definitely darker than the light teal, so I'm gonna real lightly go over it with that darker teal and blend it in. Anywhere I think it needs to be darkened up, I'm gonna blend it in with that darker teal. Sorry if I veer off the screen a little. I got a few screens going on here trying to manage. You know, my outline or my sketch line is right here, but really I think it needs to be closer. So that's when, you know, while we're looking at our reference and back at our drawing, that's when we're thinking, let me just correct that while I go. I'm going to actually keep this green a little more narrow here because I'm going to move my little sketch line for that creamy highlight. It's going to come over a little more. I don't really like the placement that I put it in. That's why we go really light with our sketch outlines. That way we can correct it if it's not quite sitting right. Much easier to correct light touch. So I'm noticing some highlights down in the corner here, right here. Since they're softer, I didn't feel like I wanted to add them at the very beginning. I just wanted to put in the super bright whites. So now I'm going to start bringing in my white and blending out those little areas. See along the edge here too, there's a lot of little highlights. So don't be afraid to have that white with you while you're putting in your colors. We got this like little highlight over here. I don't want to forget about that. And it's real soft. And we'll go back with our blending stump soon. Just want to get more of those greens in, catch any little details as we go. Just anywhere you need to lighten up, add just a little bit of white. Anywhere you need to darken up, add a little bit of black, or the darker color of the color you're working with. So I'm noticing a little more of a dark teal down in here, but it's kind of a bright green. So I'm going to just lay a soft layer of the dark teal. And then it's really transitioning into like a yellow up in here. So this is where that exercise we did before we started the drawing comes in handy, as you start layering in the transition colors, right? I'm going to blend this softly into my teal. Up through here. Now there is some yellow coming in. So I'm going to grab my yellow and my bright green. So I have a very lemony yellow and this kind of light olive green. And I'm going to actually start with the yellow. I'm going to put in that yellow, which is this here. This yellow area here. So I'm going to start popping that in. I'm trying to go at a nice steady pace, not too fast, not too slow, so y'all just holler if I'm going too fast. I can slow down for catching up. We're making good progress. Again, you don't need it to be exactly like the reference, right? We're playing here. We're having fun and we're experimenting. I'm gonna grab this green because it's a nice transition color between the yellow and those teals. It's really gonna add a life to the drawing, these bright, juicy colors. And there's some of this green kind of mixes into these other blues and greens. I'm telling you, you add like little bits of different colors throughout, it's gonna amp up your drawings. You can really see, again, we're really trying to be observant of all the tiny things going on in this drawing. So you can see this green sort of appearing here, here. It's kind of leaking through these spots here. And then there's some more of these yellows kind of popping in here. So we're going to just start kind of placing those in. And there's no wrong way, really. It doesn't have to be extremely realistic to have a realism look to it, you know? Get the general placement of things. It's gonna be fun. This one's looking even more vivid, I think, than my original drawing, which was fun. We'll get to compare the two and see the difference. Also, the reference photo I used for my original drawing was not quite as vivid and bright as this reference print because I used a different printer. So that's probably why this photo or this drawing is coming out a little bit brighter. So we have some light yellow and a highlight down here that we don't want to forget about. And I'm just looking at my reference, picking out those yellows and greens right now, popping those in. Right now our colors are a little too blocky, but we're gonna blend those together. So don't worry about that. And I'm just putting little blobs of yellow wherever I see a little yellow. It's kind of a little bit here, a little bit there. There's a little bit of yellow kind of freckled through greens, and up here under this highlight. And you kind of pick things that maybe you don't necessarily need. You don't need every single tiny detail. I'm just using my finger to just sort of smooth some of those colors just lightly. If you don't want to use your finger, you can use your blending stump. But I like to use my finger sometimes because it doesn't disrupt the pigment as much as the blending stump. So I did add some of those greens and blues, still pretty blotchy. So let's go in again with our blending stump, and we're gonna blend those greens and blues with our circular motion. And we're really gonna see it start to come alive here. It's all about that blending, I tell you. So really work that blending stump. If an area is still looking kind of gritty, just get in there and use that blender. And while you're going along, you might notice, oh hey, I think I need a little bit more purple right here, or I need a little bit more black over here. So just get up on in there and throw it in. Yeah. And I'm very happy and willing to discuss the outcomes with people in private if they'd like. And we can go over tips for improvement or any questions you had along the way. I'm more than happy to answer questions after the demo, and I would love to see your final works as well. Okay. So I'm still filling in anywhere I think needs more color, and then getting in there with my blender, blending it all out. It's still going to be looking a little bit dark and probably a little bit rich on the color right now. But that's all right. That's where we want to be. And you'll notice too, be careful, your blenders, once they have pigment in them, they will be able to actually like put color somewhere. So you can see right here, I'm actually able to color with this blending stump. So be careful, because if you don't want to add color over your highlight with your blender, you might want to trim that tip off. And that's one reason we do those whites at the very beginning, because I don't want your blenders to muddy them up later. So I'm just continuing to blend out my little blobs of color here. Trying to get a smooth surface for our next set of layers. We're not that far from the end, folks. I tell you. It may not quite look there yet, but it's the very last, like, few minutes of a realism drawing that it really starts to come to life. I always feel like my drawings are never quite ready. Like my eyes just can't see them as realistic until I add my backgrounds. And once I add my backgrounds, everything just seems to kind of pop out the way I want it to. Alright, so I'm really just going over everything except the main white highlights right now with the blender, getting it really smooth. You can see how it's starting to look more like one continuous shape, right? It's starting to come together. All right, I think next we're going to start adding some of that cream in. That we really need. So I'm going to take the cream or the off-white color. Just check in. How's everyone doing? Are we doing good? We're caught up. We got our colors blended. The colors we've done so far. Got thumbs up. Yay! Okay, everybody, let's get out our cream colored pencil and let's start getting in here with some creams. So this is the main area that has this creamy color. We're gonna start there and just work in this blocked highlight right here. And then you can see the cream kind of bleeds in through here. We're gonna cream up these yellows because they're a little too vivid. And we're gonna add a little bit up in here, kind of through this green and through the center here. So let's just start throwing it down. And even though there's a very kind of a crisp light outline to this highlight, I'm still gonna go in real soft with those edges. I'm not gonna draw around it. I'm gonna just fill it in. Fill it in with my little circles. We love circles. And don't forget, like, we're sitting here drawing and we got our faces right up to our little canvases, right? So we're probably thinking, gosh, this doesn't look realistic. But once we step back a little bit, that's when it's gonna shine. You're gonna be like, holy cow, did I do that? So here I am, just putting in that cream. We're gonna blend it out. Our favorite thing, blending. Well, my favorite. I love a blend because blending is so satisfying. You know, my little sketch line was a little bit lower than I want this, so I'm bringing it above there. Remember, our sketch lines are just a loose guide. Always adjust things as we fill in our colors. Slow and steady. Rotate your pencil as you're drawing. Don't forget. So we keep our edges sharp without having to go back to the sharpener. Thanks for hanging in there with me, everybody. This is super fun. The drawing itself takes about an hour, hour and a half, but we're playing games and giveaways and stuff, so gonna have a little fun. I mean, the drawing's fun, but it's fun to have prizes and games. So there's just some little highlights kind of popping into these greens here. There's like little little funny little highlights and shines kind of underneath the main white highlight here. Just be free with it. Just add some little blobs of color there. We're not looking to be precise right here. We're getting that feel, the textures. And the more texture you add, the better the realism outcome is going to be, I tell you. I'm not really adding like the little swisps and stuff yet. I'm just getting some lighter tones and some blending. So there's even some highlight right above the purple zoning. I'm going in real light with that cream. We don't want a white highlight here because it's a lot softer. So we're just using the cream to blend through those colors. Even though I'm making like almost like just a line here, I'm still moving in a circular motion. Very important. Unless we really need a harsh line, we don't want to be drawing straight lines over anything yet. That's gonna be our final stage. I'm sorry, let me zoom in a little bit. Keep forgetting. Okay. And you know, I think I want to brighten up my green just a little bit more here. So again, you know, go back in with any colors as you see fit. Screen's a little brighter in my reference, so I want to make it a little brighter in my drawing. And it's okay to make the whole drawing a little lighter, brighter, darker, whatever feel you want the outcome to have. And since we're all using slightly different colors, they're all going to be a little bit different. And that's okay. Now there is this sort of harsh, this little kind of fracture right here. I'm going to go ahead and just swipe that in right now. So it kind of dips into the purple. I'm not using a hard pressure here. Even though I am finally drawing an actual line, I'm just being soft. We still want that to be soft. I'm going to take my finger and just lightly smooth that out. I don't want it to be super bright just yet. We're still working on these colors. And you'll start to see like almost some like little feathering and marbling through here. Go for it. Add all of those little subtle details. So like there's a little bit of a flash here. I'm just gonna put a little pigment down. Not being super precise. There's a little speckle of light green here. I'm just gonna put a little mark there. You really want to embrace all those little nuances. Now I'm noticing here, see where this cube meets this cube? Right here, there is a pretty nice light green little line right there to show that separation. I'm going to go ahead and mark that in too. This is where we slowly start kind of popping some of those details out. It's like, well, since I have the green pencil in my hand, I might as well put in that little green right there, because we're starting to bring in the details now. We've got most of the base color down. We're bringing in the detail. I did veer a little bit away from the cream, so I apologize, but I'm just showing you how you can kind of move through the drawing as you go and just pick up things as you see them. You don't have to stick to one color at a time. But I did break this drawing down that way a little bit just to make it easier to follow along. So I veered off course slightly. I'm so sorry. Going back in with my cream now. I'm just closing up that highlight there. there's a little bit of a dark spot right up in here. Pop that in. There's some yellow kind of crossing through here. I'm just gonna warm this area up a little bit. Take your time to, you know, study your reference and look at your drawing and see what needs to be fixed or placed back in. So I'm seeing a little darkness through here. I'm gonna throw some of that black over there just real lightly. It's coming along. I'm going to go ahead and blend out my my cream. So I would recommend getting a clean edge for this one. If you need to, go ahead and trim the tips off of those blending stumps. We don't want to contaminate our cream too much. Get a little trimmy trim. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm like off camera. Here we go. Why isn't my phone charging? All right, hang tight, folks. Let me just check on my charger here. It's acting up. Oh, I came unplugged. Oops. Let's see if that fixed it. Sorry, I just noticed my charger is acting up. Y'all just catch up. Let me just fix this charger situation real quick. I don't know why it's doing that. Let me see. Sorry about that, folks. Just one second. As I get this figured out. Let me see if that did the trick. Okay. Okay, I think we're charging again. Let me see. Sorry, ignore the shakiness here real quick. Okay, now we're charging. Whew, glad I noticed that. My charger sort of stopped working. Didn't want to lose feed with you guys. All right, are we still connected? We're still going? Okay, so I just trimmed my blending stump and I'm just buffing it a little bit on my sandpaper. Getting that soft, fluffy edge back. Okay, now let's go ahead and blend out that creamy highlight. Blendy blend. And then I'm kind of using the edge here of my blender, kind of smoothing that highlight into the other greens. I'm taking a bit of a softer approach to that highlight. There is quite definition on the reference here. It's pretty crisp, but I'm going to keep it pretty soft. And you are welcome to interpret it however you like. I realize the demo is going a bit longer, but we're getting closer here, folks. We are getting closer. Okay, moving on. Moving on. We're going to work on some of these dark, kind of funky colors here. This is sort of like a gray, purple, blue. So we're going to actually get out our cobalt blue, and we're going to start putting in some of those blues. And there's some kind of right in here, right up in here, and we're gonna kind of put a light layer here that we're gonna cover up with gray to give us this kind of muted color. So I'm just adding a little bit of blue. Our mixture of our purple and teal there did give us a nice blue. I'm just gonna pop that blue just a little bit. It's so nice. It's just real nice. I'm gonna put a little blue up in the center here. There's some darker blue spots. And just adding some extra blue colors in here is just gonna add a little bit more to that final tone and feel of the piece. There's some blues up in here that will lighten up as well. Just using my finger to blend that out. How's everyone doing? We're having fun? Blending? I know it's kind of hard to to comment because I'm making you all draw. Yeah, just a little emoji just to make sure everyone's happy. Oh, good. All right, so I'm gonna kind of put a little blue like right up against this highlight because you can see in the reference there's a bit of a blue shine there. I'm gonna put the blue right up there, and I'm gonna be pretty subtle with it, fading out. Now there is some crispy blue right there, right above that white right there. Let's throw it in there. Go ahead and put a line. Just really put in that blue right there. Blend it up into that black that you already laid down. It's gonna add a nice crispness to that edge. Bringing a little bit of the blue over this teal here because it just feels right. And there's no wrong way, really. We're having fun. We're making each drawing our own, so you don't have to do it exactly like I'm doing it. There's a little purple undertone to this little corner here. So before I put the gray over top of it, to give us that kind of muted gray color, I'm gonna put a little bit of purple underneath. And right now it's almost just blending right into the top surface here. Don't worry, once we put our gray over it, you'll see it pop right off the page. Again, very, very light here. I really just want to add a tone underneath the gray that we're about to put on top of it. Blend with your finger if it's needing a little smooth out. All right. Now, before I go in with that gray, I'm feeling like we need to brighten it up just a little bit here and there. So I'm getting out my light teal or my jade color again. And I'm going to kind of go over some of these greens a little bit. Blend in this highlight a little here. Just wherever you think needs a little bit more of a brightness in the blue-green family here. Even adding this over some of those creamy highlights just to brighten it up. Also, this olive green can be really nice for brightening up these teals. Very, very, very lightly. I'm very lightly just sort of skimming the surface on over here just to add a little bit of variation in the color. It's almost like I can barely feel the paper under the pencil. Really just trying to add a slight color shift. See how that's brightening everything up just a little bit? A yellow or a bright greens or blues can really help brighten things up as a glaze. So what I'm doing here is called glazing, where I'm just barely resting my pencil on the surface and just kind of letting it glide. I'm not trying to change the color. I'm just trying to give it like a little bit of a soft coating, you know? I'm just glazing it. I'm just trying to brighten up those areas by bringing in that tone. I mean, I'm holding this pencil as far back as I can. So for glazing, you definitely want to hold it at the very back. I'm not applying any pressure. I am just skimming the surface. But if like an area is looking too blue, go ahead and glaze it with the yellow or the bright green, the olive green. And see how it's just brightening everything up? Everything's starting to kind of pop out here. I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna actually use this green again, right up in this top area here where it gets pretty green. So there's this black area, the purples, this green right here, I'm gonna add a little glazing with this olive. Then we're gonna also glaze over here with this light blue we have. So let's glaze with the green a little bit. And since these colors blend so seamlessly with each other in the reference, we don't have to worry about every little spot being in the exact right place because they're all blending together. That green is just a little too yellow, so now I'm gonna take my light turquoise and I'm gonna glaze that with the green. Blend it out a little bit with your finger. And then I'm even gonna go in with my teal. And this third color is gonna really make that just right for us. So now we've got the perfect green when we combine all three of those greens. Now, this is almost, there's only a couple places that we're gonna use this light blue, and this is one of them. So we're gonna put in this highlight right here. This little highlight. So we're just gonna blend it with this light blue right down into this green. I'm gonna rotate my canvas slightly. This is gonna help me get that funky angle. So we're gonna put in that little highlight with the blue, real subtle. Okay. And then I'm even gonna come back over that blue with the white to really make it shine. And don't forget, blend it out into the other colors real lightly. Focusing more of the saturation right in the highlighted area. Blending everything else softly back into those low light areas. And then I'm going to go in with the white and right in that little area at the very, very top. I'm going to punch it with some white. I'm glazing here. I'm glazing the surface. Even though I'm holding my pencil up, I'm still glazing. I'm just trying to get precise, right? I need to be a little precise here and get it right into that little nook and cranny there. Right in there. So I am holding it close, but I'm pressing real light. So I'm just trying to drag the color across. Okay. That. All right. Ooh, we're getting close, everybody. We're getting really close. Just you wait till we start adding those details. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, it's coming to life. Oh, see, I'm tempted. I'm all trying to start adding details, but we're not quite there yet. I get excited about the details. Okay, so I think we're looking pretty good here. I think what we need to do is get out some grays. So we've got our two grays, right? They should both be a cool gray. Not necessary, but that's just what I'm going with the reference. Warm gray might not give us quite the tone we want. So I have a dark gray and a light gray. We're going to go in with our dark gray first. And we're going to go back to this little pyramid here. Isn't she cute? And I'm going to fill in this space here with that medium gray. If you have a gray background, like this Pastelmat that I'm using as a dark gray, you could almost leave that, you know, just leave it blank and let the gray of the background act as that color. But I don't think all of us have gray, so we're gonna fill that in. And I'm using the dark gray on the end, blend it out real soft into that white edge we made earlier. Then I'm gonna use some of the light gray to even further that soft transition there. And I'm just blending it out. Keeping a nice transition from the white to the dark, okay? And then this gray here is the lighter gray, but we're just going to freckle in some light gray towards the tip and put in a few little specks of the dark gray just to kind of define this bottom edge of the pyramid here as it goes out. I'm just literally just pressing little dots of color, keeping it subtle. Okay. Okay, now we're going to move over to this area here. We're going to be doing some glazing, our favorite. I'm going to start with the dark gray because I don't want it to be too bold to start. And we're going to be getting this section here. So we've got our blue and our purple underneath, and we're going to glaze over it with our grays. So I'm going to start at the top edge and just start carefully glazing. So yes, I am kind of making a line here, but I'm using my little circles, still using my circles. And I'm real light, being real light here. I'm not trying to completely cover up the blue and the purple we put down there. I just want to glaze over it. So I know we built our layers with a really light touch, but you want to glaze with an even lighter touch. It's hard. It's kind of the harder thing to do. It can be pretty tricky with colored pencil too, because it wants to grip. It really wants to grip. But just be patient. Remember to breathe. I'm gonna keep breathing. It's looking pretty good. I want to add a little bit of light gray now, I think. So go ahead and do one more glaze over with your lighter gray, just on that corner there. It does need to have the right contrast. And right now it's looking a little too dark as in contrast to the top surface there of that cube. And just make note of, you know, where the lightest parts are, kind of at the edge, and then it kind of blurs in here. So all those little subtle things you want to pay attention to. Again, make sure that purple and that blue is still showing through. It's starting to come to life. See, it's starting to look a little bit more realistic. Okay, we are almost to the detail stage, everyone. This is exciting. Okay, now, let's see. What are we gonna do next? I think we're actually gonna keep a hold of our light gray. Now I see some lighter little blobs of color down here. Let's start punching those in with this gray, even up here, kind of in this area too. Let's put in some of this light gray. And we're glazing. We're still glazing, so real light. We're just trying to lighten up some colors, add in some little subtle texture. And we don't need every tiny little detail in here. We just want the subtle shapes right now. So just add in some of those highlighted shapes. I'm feeling like the bottom of mine here is looking a little dark, a little muddy. So I'm going to brighten those up with some highlight areas. It's almost like some circular highlights coming in here. Ooh, I really am ready for details. I'm so excited to start the details. My pencil wants to do it. It's like, come on, let's get those details in. But we can't rush. There's sometimes in my pastel drawings where I'll start to put in the details and then I'll have to pretty much just cover them all up because I wasn't quite done with all my base layers. So no point in rushing the details because you might have to do them over again. One thing I didn't quite put in place is this highlight here. So just put in a little white and then a little bit of cream there and transition it back into those darks. Thanks for hanging in there, everybody. I am like really grateful to you all for tuning in and sticking with it. Realism is not a quick thing to do, so especially when we have to take breaks for fun giveaways and all sorts of other stuff. So I just added that white. I'm putting a little cream here. And then I'm going to actually put a tiny little pinch of yellow glaze. Because there's definitely some yellow going on in there. And yeah, there's some highlights here, but those are going to come at the very end. We're not adding those sharp whites yet. So go ahead and blend that out. Now this area here, right here, there are some little striations you can see. I'm going to go ahead and use the pigment on my blending stump and kind of fill this in, and we're going to add those striations back with our white pencil. And that's not super important for you to also do, but it is just a way to, instead of, you know, making this white and then adding those dark highlights, it's easier for me to put a little bit of that color down first and add those bright whites on top of the color. thinking our base colors are looking pretty good, and it's pretty much about time for us to play with the details. So I'm just going to go through and kind of blend out those light gray little blotches that I kind of added in earlier. I'm going to go in with my cream actually and add a little bit more layering into this highlight, but not everywhere. So if you look closely, you can see how it sort of fades into the green and back into bright white and back into cream. So I'm just going to add like some punches of brighter cream throughout that, not through the whole shape, kind of here or there. A little bit here, a little bit there. Because that's what I see in my reference. I don't see a huge chunky block of solid cream here, right? It's like little flashes of lighter and darker cream. And this is where our third layer of color starts to become details. So we're only adding color in specific areas to sort of punch one spot or another. So I'm going to take my cream and extend it over above the zoning here. There's some like little lines that come through the zoning. It's not perfect, right? It's not perfectly shaped. Let me zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. So we zoom in. It's not as pretty when we zoom in, but that's all right. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Carla. I'm so happy you are enjoying it and liking the tips and tricks. That's important. So here's what I was doing. See, I'm just kind of taking my pencil and I'm just kind of dragging it through, because there's all these little wisps and swirls up in here. This is where we get to kind of be free with it. Look at your reference, draw a little line, look back at your reference, and just let your pencil kind of follow your eye. This highlight sort of bleeding into the zoning over here, so I'm going to just bring that pencil in. This is where we start looking at the things in the foreground. We've got our base colors down. We're starting to add all these little wisps and swirls, inclusions. We're adding the softer ones first, and then we'll go in and add all the crispiest ones at the very end. So up here in this zoning here, see all those little swispsies? Swisps and swirls over here? Just start laying them in, get that cream out. If you need to, go back to your sharpener. I'm going to give this one a little sharpen. Just a little bit. Oh good, my phone is holding a charge at 20%. I hope it just stays put. There's all these little textures right up against the edge. Be free with it, you know. You don't need to be exactly like the reference. I'm just kind of having fun. It's like by now we kind of know our mineral. We've been staring at this reference for a while, so it's time to just sort of experiment a little bit and have fun with it. There's little highlights here. There's some like weird shine. You know, it's funny because the camera is gonna show, or the reference might show things that you don't really see in the actual specimen. So you can decide what to embrace in your drawing and what to leave out. Like this kind of golden yellow, like, I don't know, that's just like, you know, a weird light reflection from the photo. So it's not necessary to put that in there. So I'm going to actually kind of highlight the edge here, how it's kind of bright. I'm going to start brightening up that edge and making it a little bit crisper. Okay. See, I'm starting to use a little more pressure now. See, I'm a little bit closer up on my pencil. I'm kind of going back and forth from creating like detail lines, and then see how I'm smoothing it in. Pressing a little firmer because I want this little edge to be bright, and then I'm bringing in a little wisp with a light touch. So you'll start to learn how to sort of ebb and flow through the textures and the pressures of your pencils. But it all takes time to learn those things and to kind of get used to doing them. I had a lot of experiments and trial and error when I was starting to learn realism. And, you know, it's time to bring in the black too. You want to have sort of all your pencils handy right now. You're going to be switching back and forth, just looking at your reference. And I usually sort of go, when I start with the details now, I will attack a small area at a time and move across my drawing really slowly, filling in all those little tiny details as I go. Oops. Let me zoom out so you can sort of see. So again, make sure to step back from your drawing and take a peek at it. You'll start to say, oh my gosh, look at that. It is coming to life. You know, when you're up this close to it, you're like, what? Is this going to ever look real? Just remember, back it off. Look at it from a distance. If you've ever been up close to a painting in a museum, you'll notice that when you get up close, you can see all the little paint marks and brush strokes. But as you step back from it, it all starts to blur together. It's the magic of art. So I'm just blending a little bit as I go. If I think something looks a little too crisp, I'm just going to bring in my little blender. Finding this purple is just a little darker than I wanted, so I'm going to glaze over it a little bit with my cream, especially through these lighter areas that I'm noticing on my reference. Zoom in a little bit more for you. Believe it or not, we're getting close. We are actually super close. I do apologize, this did go about an hour longer than I expected. But I think it's gonna be worth it. Okay, and sometimes I just need to sit back and look at my drawing and see what I want to do next. I'm noticing, like, you know, I think I'm going to add a little blue down in here. There's a little bit of a streak, blue streak. Just a little quick addition there. I'm going to start popping more whites now. And you can almost never go in too many times on your highlights. That's another tip for realism. You really want the contrast to be apparent. So you really want to go in with your highlights and your shadows, even at the very, very end, even if you've already laid them out, they can always use more. Never go too hard on your highlights and too dark on your low lights and your shadows. So I'm going to start actually kind of outlining. I can see this here has a pretty crisp white outline, a white highlight. So I'm going to go ahead and go for it. I'm going to just use some pressure. We're using pressure now. Oh, the pressure. Let me rotate my canvas because the shadows from my light are kind of getting in the way. Now what I'm going to do first, actually, And I'm going to sharpen that very edge of this white. I don't want it to be dull when I'm adding this. When you want to add a sharp line, you can even just keep your pencil at one angle on your sandpaper. Move it in a circular motion, and then you'll have a nice angled tip. See that? That's going to be great when we just use that sharp edge to put in our little tiny little lines for our highlights. So I'm going for it now. We're starting to put in those details, so don't be afraid. Even though I scared you earlier saying, don't use pressure. Now is your time to use some pressure. So there really is quite a crisp white outline on this. There's a little bit of like a little divot here, so I'm gonna draw that in. We don't want it to be perfect and straight, because that's really not what the reference is showing us, right? And it kind of stops there. There's some little flickers of highlight. Flickers. And there's some little buddies over here. And then I'm kind of just being free with it now. This white looks a lot brighter to me, so I'm going to go over it with my little soft circles. I feel like the white needs to kind of glaze over these colors a little bit. And we're just going with the flow. Deep breaths. Blend it out. A little bit more yellow here. And now see, mixed with that white and that cream, it's really softening it up. It's really nice. Right, let's see, where else do we want to go? Okay, let's just keep moving across the drawing. So let's go into here and let's crisp up these lines here. So the outside of this cube, I'm gonna put a nice white crispy border on this, blending it in. So we lay it down a line and we blend it up. And don't be afraid to go back to your sandpaper. Sharpen that chisel tip. Keep it nice and sharp. I'm still feathering it in. Even though I'm doing a nice crispy line, I'm still just kind of laying down the color nice and soft, little feathery strokes. And when you're in a spot where it's feeling really confident, go ahead and just press it in. And see, my shape is a little wide here as compared to my reference. It's fine. I'm gonna roll with it. I already got it laid down. It's not gonna really matter. And then I'm gonna continue this white highlight. It actually goes up the side of this one. And you'll start to see it really come to life when we start adding these little highlights. My favorite part, really. The detail layer, it's the best. So I'm really closely following my reference here. So I'm doing kind of a smooth line here, and now it starts to break up that line. So I'm gonna break up the white line and then continue it back right through here. So don't just look at it once and say, oh, there's a white line, because it's really not. It breaks up here, and these lines start to flow into our specimen to add detail, like this. Little white lines like that. And then the line continues up I'm starting to feel like my pencil's a little dull, so I'm going to rotate it. Use another edge of that chisel, or come right back into my sandpaper. Sharpening's half the battle with this kind of a thing. So be sure to keep that chisel sharp while we're doing these details. Go back to your pencil sharpener, whatever you got to do to get a nice tip on that pencil. So bringing it up through here. There's a little like dot highlight there. And it sort of disappears and fades into the green at the top. So you can even continue the line real soft, blend it out with your finger. See how it's starting to come to life when we start to add those highlights? Ooh, it's juicy. We love that. This highlight over here is a little bit bright, but that's okay because we're gonna still add some more details here that'll make it kind of blend in. So I'm actually gonna go in here with some white real gently. I just feel like this part is still a little bit darker. I'm following the direction that I'm seeing these details going right here. There's some really subtle lines going up this way. So since I'm highlighting that a little more anyway, I'm just going to follow that feathery direction. Might as well put in those textures while I'm brightening this spot up. And it should blend more into the highlight, the highlighted edge here. And then kind of swisping it through. Swisping it through. There's some little dots here, so I'm going to add those as I go. And we're just working a small area at a time. So let's go ahead and fill this area in with our details. We don't want to get too distracted and do details here, go over here, go over here. It's harder, you'll lose your way and you'll miss things. So we're gonna just stick with our white and we're gonna start adding some of these little texture lines here and these little dot highlights, and just keep looking at your reference and back to your drawing and just go for it. Add what you see. Make sure that when you're putting in lines like this that you're paying attention to the reference and the angles. Like you may assume that the angle of these is perfectly parallel to the angle of this, but it's actually not quite. It does slightly pivot, so just follow with your eye and do your best. You can be a little loose with it. Like, yeah, maybe there's not specifically a little highlight right here, but I think that looks nice and it's giving me the effect I want, so I'm gonna go ahead and put it there. Just remember to keep looking at your reference. Have fun. Let's see if I can get this at an angle you can see. I'm just adding in those little highlights, little snickety highlights. And some of the highlights might be in a different color, so don't just stick with your white. Right through here, this green is brightening up a bit. So I'm going to throw in a little bit of green here. Okay, how's everyone doing? Can I get a little whoop whoop or a thumbs up? Make sure everybody's happy. Yay! I see a heart. I like it. I like it. Okay, so let's back it up and see how we're looking. Oh, getting more realistic as we go. Woo-hoo. Thank you, Janine. Love it. Okay, I'm gonna sharpen my white pencil so I have a nice sharp tip again, because my bevel is getting a little low, a little bit chunky. So I'm gonna go ahead and freshen this one up. I say we have about 30 minutes left to finish. So hang in there, people, you're doing great. I can't wait to see everybody's results. I'm so excited. Okay, so we're just gonna finish up this section here. I see some highlights kind of coming over from the white side of this reflection. It's not a perfect edge. The imperfections are what make the realism drawings really look good, so don't try to hide those imperfections. I did jump up a little bit because I'm just following my reference as I go. I'm like, okay, where's white go? It goes here, it goes here, there's a little here, oh, and then I see some here, here, there's little speckles through here, so don't forget those. Those are just as important as this big highlight here. So we're just working this cube here. So just keep going through it, checking your reference, and popping in those little highlights as we go. Some of them are soft, some of them are harsh. So just use the techniques we've shown, or that we've gone through, to capture those subtle textures, right? And I do really enjoy a speckling highlight. So here's where I'm gonna really want a sharp pencil. So when I go in and do these little teeny tiny highlights. And I find being less precise with my pencil is helpful for these kinds of things. Like I'm just kind of slapping it down, just tapping it across. I'm not being like, this dot. No. Loosen up your wrist and just kind of let the pencil add the texture. This is where we kind of have to let our creativity and our intuition take over and not worry so much about everything being perfect. Perfect, you know, is boring. We don't need that. There's lots of little specklies. And I enjoy popping some of these little details more so than the reference. It just really adds life to the drawing. And again, once you're standing looking at it from afar, you don't want to lose those little details. Sometimes if you do them too subtle, it's like you didn't even do them at all. So there's some little white speckling through this area. And then, I mean, you can get as detailed as you really want. I can see like some little tiny striations right here. Heck, put them in. It'll only help your drawing in the end. No detail is too subtle. Really just adds to it. And remember, don't forget to pick up other colors if you notice there's something going on. Like there's a little purple streak kind of in here. It's barely there, but it makes a big difference. And now here's where I need to add some little striation marks, which, you know, I'm okay with the fact that my dimensions aren't perfect here. We're already, you know, almost done, so we're going to roll with it. Zoom in just a snip, show you this part. So I'm kind of adding in these little lines right in here, okay? Now these lines are parallel to this line here, so that's something to keep your eye on. Make sure it's running parallel to that line, or else it'll throw off sort of the realistic look, because your eye will be like drawn to it, not knowing why, and then you realize, oh, that angle is off. Just do your best. And this part can be a little snickety. And you don't have to put every single little line. You're just getting that feel in. You just want that texture to show through. And I'm actually taking some of this blue for the lines on this side, because they're not white lines through this purple. It's kind of a darker blue that's reflecting. Smooth it out a little bit. I'm gonna do another little, now that we're kind of finishing up this cube, this section here, this is where I'm gonna start to put a little pressure on my pencil. Still nice and sharp, still backed off from the end. I'm gonna throw in a little bit of texture here. And do one more little glaze here with my white, just over this whole highlight, this whole big highlight here. Because like I said, you want to punch those whites at the end and really darken those shadows. And we don't really want to blend this again with the blending stump, because that will actually dull the white a little bit. So when we go in with our final highlights, we really just want to get the pigment in there and just let it be. Doing good here, folks, even though we're going long. We're getting closer. All right, let's back it up, let's take a peek. Oh, looking more realistic. What do y'all think? This part, I'd say, is pretty much done. Okay. All right, y'all ready to keep doing details? Let's get back into it. So we're working this bottom here. And like I said, not every little detail has to be in there, just enough to give us the texture and the feel. So we want to keep our pencils nice and crispy sharp. So we're doing all these little tiny little lines. Let me zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. So zooming in. Ooh, my tummy's starting to grumble. I'm keeping you all from your din-dins. That's okay, we're almost done. I promise, we're almost done. I noticed a little green wanted to be up in here. Put that in there. I really hope that everyone will want to share their final drawing outcomes. You can either share it in your stories, on your feeds, you can put it in the comments of the video or the event as well, or you can just send me a direct message if you don't want to share that way. But I would absolutely love to see your interpretations of this fun drawing that we're doing. And if it doesn't look like mine, great. It shouldn't. It should look like yours, and it should have your style, your flair. Like, I'm showing you my tips and my tricks and how I like to do things, but I want you to be able to come up with your style, you know. That's the great thing about art. Really no wrong way. It doesn't even have to be as, you know, it doesn't have to be super realistic. It could be more expressive. I'm just trying to have fun. I'm just working my way through real slow. There's a few little specklies here that I want to pop out. That's a little close. There we go. How's everyone feeling? Are we where we want to be with our drawings? Are we feeling caught up? It's okay, you can just answer internally because I want you to keep drawing. Because we're running long, so I'll stop interrupting everyone. Okay, now there's some little details that are real subtle, like some of these yellows through the blacks. Oh, good, yay! Oh, in good shape, feeling good. Oh, I love it. So, you know, some of these details might not be in white. They might be in like a yellow or gray. I mean, some of my first mineral drawings were not so cute, so definitely takes a lot of time and practice to sort of find your style and figure out what tools you like the best. And I'm having fun with the colored pencils. It's different than what I'm used to. While I used to draw with colored pencils a lot, it was more of a illustrative feel. It wasn't realism when I was younger. So I'm still learning how to manage colored pencils. They got a mind of their own. You know, get as crazy as you really want with the details. I start getting a little painterly, and I kind of start just like adding little blobs of color here or there. It does amp it up in the end if you're brave. There's some like yellows coming in here. Like I said, my colors aren't exactly the same as my references, but I wanted to keep the palette somewhat limited. You know, I don't want you to have a subtle tone for every color available. That's just ridiculous. So we roll with what we got, and we blend and we blend. This is where we start to get a little bit crazy. It does take some concentration for sure. I feel like I kind of want to get my blender stump out again, just up in this area. Feeling the need for a little something over here. Really appreciate y'all hanging in. Oh, you forgot to breathe. Oh no! Yeah, breathing is really important. I tell you. When I learned that trick from that other artist, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I am allowed to relax while I do this. All right. It kind of feels like you're walking on eggshells, though, a little bit when you're doing realism, because you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many tiny things, and it can be a little overwhelming, and that's why we do it in stages, right? You don't just plow into it thinking, oh, I gotta make this look realistic in 5 minutes. You know, you work on it slowly. You slowly build it up. Yeah. Breathe, everyone. It's just art. It's gonna be fine. All right. Yeah, I'm getting a little crazy here. Getting a little crazy. Getting a little snickety. better just loosen up. All right, I'm gonna go in and just start smacking in these highlights right here. Let's just toss them in. What do we got to lose? Try to get this done in the next 10 minutes or so. Okay, I'm popping in this white. Now I'm using pressure. See, I'm all up on the tip of my pencil here. I'll back it up just so you guys can see better. And now I'm feeling the need to sharpen my pencil again. That's better. I'm just adding some of these little feathery touches here. You know, I think I even am adding more details on this one than I did on my initial drawing when I was prepping. And you know, I didn't quite get the perfect angle on these lines, so I'm gonna kind of correct them a little bit. But again, it's all good. It's okay. Because we're not going to stare at it 2 inches away, right? We're going to set it farther away from us and look at it. That always makes things look better. You know, get as crazy as you want with these details. Some are a lot sharper than others. Don't forget to use different strengths of pressure. And there's some subtle little highlights up through here. Here's where I'm getting a little free with my pencil again, because these details are so tiny. I don't want to suffer through every one of them, making sure they're perfect. Just kind of throw some in there, and your eye will fill in the rest. I'm going to brighten up those little blobby highlights too, from the center out. From the center out. I'm going to add just a touch of my darker gray up through here. Just seems to need a little glazing. It's a little bit dim there. My goodness, we are almost there. We are almost there. I'm going to brighten this up a little bit here. My highlights, my creams. Sorry, I'm getting a little out of the center here. Yes, Chelsea, Zen, breathing, yoga. We use our soothing voice when we do realism. Now that would probably put you all to sleep. We gotta have energy too. I don't know, I'm liking this little drawing. It's looking pretty cute. I think I may be liking this one better than my first one. They're both similar, but it's interesting too, because I don't think I've ever done a drawing and then done it again. It's fun to see how they are different, but they still are the same. It's still the same image, and I'll show you all. Once we're done, I'll compare the two. And I mean, I'm definitely taking more time on this one because we're walking through it together. When I drew the original one, I was trying to see how quickly I could get it done without sacrificing, you know, the look I wanted. And it took me about an hour and a half of just sitting there drawing. So I think we're doing pretty good with all the breaks we've been taking and, you know, as we're learning together. I'm just adding some little darker little shadows in certain areas. This white we're gonna brighten up too. Don't worry, it's looking a little bit smoky. This is where I start to get a little crazy and I'm like, oh, that needs to be perfect and I gotta fix that, but just do what feels right. The great thing about this kind of a drawing, like on Pastelmat, is you can go back in any time and correct things and fix things and add more layers and more details. So if you didn't quite get all the details you wanted by the end of the demo, you can keep on going after we log off. You can come back to it tomorrow, and you know, when you come back, you often see things that maybe you missed the first time because you were, you know, focused on getting it done or getting the colors right or whatever. And often if you come back to it the next day with fresh eyes, you might see some little details that you want to add to it then. Nothing wrong with that. I spend days and days doing my normal drawings. I literally cannot finish them in one sitting. It's just too much. Especially with realism, it can kind of wear you out. Like, you might all need a little nap after this, but I know I do get sort of like mentally exhausted because just all the detail takes a lot of effort and brain exercise. Oh man, we're looking good. We're like pretty much done. Okay, so I'd say, you know, I've got pretty much all my little details in. There's some little white highlights like snickering in right here in the black. Those are very important. Let's not forget those. Little sneakers. So I'm just gonna put some of these little speckles down. Yeah, you're gonna want pastel pencils, and I'll be doing pastel tutorials soon, since that's my main jam. That's like my favorite way to draw minerals. I just thought colored pencils would be a little more accessible for this demo. Most people have them lying around. Pastel pencils are a little pricier, and you know, I don't want people to have to buy some fancy art supplies just to try a demo. But if you feel like that's something you want to get more into, I mean, hit me up. I'll give you all my favorites, my recommendations, and then you can join my future demos, and we'll draw so many fun things. It's gonna be great. This is definitely something I want to do more of in the future. So any feedback that you all have for me is going to be helpful too. Don't be shy. If you want to reach out to me after with any suggestions for how I can improve on the demo, or things you liked, things that didn't work, suggestions to make it easier to follow, I'm open to all that. All right, so we're done with our details. How's everyone feeling? Feeling good? Feeling good? Let's just go ahead and fill in this white again one last time. We're gonna pop that highlight, pop it good, and then we're gonna fill in our backgrounds, which is optional. And there's definitely more ways than one to do a background, but I personally love a really dark black background. Or I'll do like some subtle highlights around my specimen. But today we're just gonna fill it in with black, and we're gonna watch that fluorite pop right off the page when we do that. You're gonna love it. gonna love it. So I am using a nice medium pressure now. Now that we're done, we want to really pop that white. So don't be afraid to get in there. Not too hard though. We're still not trying to score the paper. We're just trying to get that tooth of the paper nice and saturated with the white. So again, keep rotating your pencil so you have the sharpest edge going into the tooth. That'll keep it smoother, less waxy looking, and really help fill in that grainy texture. And this outline is a little bit fuzzy, but again, once we pop in our black background, that's gonna smooth right out. And it'll really look crispy. I'm really proud of everyone for hanging in there with me. Y'all are troopers. Troopers. So excited to see everyone's drawings. Okay, look at that. It's looking like a real fluorite. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Okay, how's everyone feeling? Are we ready for backgrounds? What do we think? Do you guys need a little bit more time to pop in some of those details? I don't want to rush anybody. I'll take a sip of my water here. We liking it? Yay. Everyone's happy? Okay, so let me just talk about options while y'all kind of get caught up, or wherever you need to be. We're gonna put in our background. Ooh, I'm excited. My favorite part. So my personal favorite is the black pastel pencil. This is the Carbothello brand, Stabilo brand Carbothello pastel pencil. This is my favorite background, but I have provided, I'm sorry, some of you who ordered the kit right away didn't get a piece of charcoal. I decided later it would be good to add that, so I apologize if you didn't get one. Some of you got a little piece of this willow charcoal in your kits. This is what you'll use for the background now. You can also use a charcoal block, just like this, or a soft charcoal pencil. And we're just doing black today. That's what I wanted to show for the tutorial, but you can also use different colors. You can do whatever you like with your backgrounds. That's totally up to the artist. But today we're just gonna fill it in with black. It'll be quicker. So if you have your little willow, you're just gonna use the little edge here and start filling and drawing right up against the edge of your specimen and crisping up the outlines. I'm going to use my pencil because it's my favorite. Okay. Now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be filling it in with the circular motion, our favorite way to draw on Pastelmat. So I'm going to start actually with like a crisp line around the whole edge of the fluorite. Then I'm going to start filling in with a circular motion and then blending it with a circular motion with my right ring finger. For some reason, the pad on this finger is the smoothest blender. I mean, I tell you, I don't know why, but this finger is the one and only blending finger that I use. You don't have to do that, but whatever works for you best. You can even use your blending stump, whatever you choose. It just smooths everything out, and I like to avoid having harsh lines on my background. So of course, you know me, everything's gonna be in a circular motion. And you can start anywhere. I'm gonna start right around this white highlight because it's gonna satisfy me to get that crisped up right away. Rotate your canvas, do whatever you need to do to make it comfy. This is where you can correct anything. Like I felt like this edge was coming out a little too far, so with my black, I'm gonna just cover that up so that it makes me happy, so it looks nice and crisp. So yeah, I am drawing a line, but I'm still moving that pencil slightly in a circular motion. You know, you can use a straight line, but you want a feathering motion to it. With the pastel pencils though, you can pretty much do whatever and then smooth it out again later because they're so soft. So take your time, don't feel rushed on this part. You want to make it really crisp right up against the edges. That's what's going to make it look 3D. And you know, like this edge is not sharp on the fluorite, so I'm going to make sure keep it nice and soft. And I'm correcting where I overdrew right there. It will be a little dusty. I have an air compressor that I use when I'm drawing to blow away extra dust, but you can blow it like that if you want, or you can even tap the dust off onto a paper towel or into a garbage if it's getting a little dusty. And for this part, when you're outlining it, that's when you want your pencil to be nice and crispy sharp. So again, this is really where the oh, I lost my sandpaper somehow. Oh, here it is. This is where the sandpaper comes in handy, because I don't really want to keep sharpening this, and with your charcoal you're gonna need an edge, so you're gonna want to use your sandpaper to just sharpen a little edge. So let me show you with the willow charcoal I included. You're just gonna rub it in a circular motion again and create your own tip. See how I did that? I sharpened it at an angle and that gave me a nice sharp tip. That's probably what you'll want to do to start that outline with. Sorry, I should have maybe said that earlier. Forgive me. Okay. We're just keeping that edge nice and sharp while we do this outline. Trying not to cover up our little nice crispy white outlines here. So just get right up onto that edge. We can always pop those whites again if we lose them with our charcoal or our pastel. And the reason I like to use a soft pencil for my backgrounds, well, I mean, I typically use soft pencil for my entire drawing, but even for this drawing that we did in colored pencil, is that the waxiness of the colored pencils, if we were to fill this background in with all black, it would just look bad. It just would be too shiny, too waxy, and it would detract from the specimen. So I like a really soft matte black background because it doesn't take away from the drawing, I find. There's that sound I love. Pastel pencil on Pastelmat. So scratchy. Love it. So now we don't need to worry about the pencil being super sharp. You're just going to start doing bigger circles and filling it in. Little bit at a time. Don't try to do big circles like this. Little circles. Little circles, saturating each little section as we go. And once I get a little section about this big, that's when I'm going to go in with my trusty blender finger very lightly. I'm just brushing it across the surface and just in a circular motion, just blending it out. Just smoothing it down. Don't press too hard. Make sure your fingers aren't sweaty or oily either. Another trick, that might be good is to put a paper towel underneath your art for this last part, just to catch any of the dust, the fallout from the soft pencil or charcoal. And we don't have to go slow anymore. We can go a little fast. We're just filling in the background with one color. So just as long as you're keeping with your smaller circles, you can speed it up. And see how that's just disappearing, the grid lines behind it? There's no more grid lines. I think a lot of you got the sketch kit, so you don't have to worry about the grid lines. But this stage should cover up any grid lines that were there. This part definitely can take some patience for sure, because it gets a little monotonous. You're like, oh my gosh, how much more of this can I do? On my big drawings, I have to definitely take breaks when it comes to filling in the background. And my finger, my blending finger, will start to feel like raw. Because this is like a sanded paper that I'm rubbing my finger over, so again, don't press too hard. It can kind of be a little uncomfortable if you're sanding off your finger. And you go all the way to the edge. You'll be glad you did. It'll wear down your charcoal or your pencil pretty quick, so don't forget, once it gets to be nubby, well, those of you with a charcoal block or the charcoal in the kits, you won't have to worry about sharpening because it's just a continuous piece of charcoal. But if you are using a pencil, be sure to sharpen it once it gets to that. And yeah, anyone who's interested in learning more about pastels or wants recommendations for pastel pencils and sharpeners and all that good stuff, you can reach out to me anytime. I have all my favorites, and it's taken me a good few years to figure out, you know, the best tools to go along with pastel pencils. So happy to share my knowledge with you. Don't forget to breathe. This part really needs breathing. It's okay. We're gonna get through this background. I can start to feel kind of like in a panic when I'm doing the backgrounds. I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta get it done. But don't do that. Just breathe and enjoy the soothing, meditative process. Halfway done. Don't forget to blend. Whew, you all are troopers. This definitely went longer than I expected, so that's something that... Oh no. I got some gem tack on the back here. It's sticking to my napkin. Yeah, that's something I will definitely keep in mind for the future. It's just hard to know how long it's gonna go. I'm just happy it's streaming today. But my phone is like losing power even though I have it plugged in, so we're about just a couple minutes out. We're just almost there. Thank you for giving up a few hours of your evening to hang out with me and draw. This has been such a fun experience, and I cannot wait to do more of these. And yeah, let me know if you all found that like having the little supply kits to be helpful. I really want to make my demos easy to participate in. And, you know, I want people to be able to try things out without having to go buy a bunch of supplies. So I really hope the kits were helpful. And of course, I'm always going to want to include a little extra something in those kits, little extra goodies. Because, you know, my love language is giving gifts a lot, so that's why I love a good giveaway. I'm just knocking off the extra dust because it's starting to get onto my drawing and make me nervous. Just make sure you keep the extra dust off of there so it doesn't settle into your tooth on your actual drawing. I'm just gonna do one more sharpen. That should get us through. And there's definitely a bunch of different ways we could do a background. We could use different pastels, different colors. Oh, good, Carla. I'm glad to hear that it was helpful. Yeah, the paper alone is very pricey, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make some little kits. Especially when you're learning, you know, you don't want to have to go buy some, you know, $50 pack of fancy paper that you might not know what to do with. I mean, you know, someone crazy like me is gonna be like, oh my gosh, give me that pack of paper. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it yet, but I need that. Because I'm like a art supply hoarder. But I don't want other people to have to be art supply hoarders. Unless they want to be. Oh my gosh, we're almost there. I hope y'all are caught up. Almost done. Last little bit. Oh, that feels so good. And then we blend it out. Careful on the edges. Careful along the little edges there. Don't rub your finger over that. Rub it right up against the edge, and then you can just dust off the excess. You don't want to smudge it into your fluorite there. That's why I like the paper towel too. I can just tap it, and that gets off that excess dust. And then I can use the paper towel to wipe my surface. Oh my goodness, look what we did. We drew a fluorite together. Yay! So here's my drawing I did today. Let's compare it with the drawing I did to start. Ooh, so they're different, but it's still the same, right? Which one do you like better? I don't know. I kind of maybe like the new one we did together better. It's a little brighter. A little bit different. You know, you can see like my highlight here is a little wider than my initial one. You know, things are a little bit different, but we still have a fun, realistic fluorite drawing. Isn't it brighter? That's because I learned more. Because I was learning with you all. Yep. See, it shows improvement from the first time I did it to the second time, which is good. That's good news. As I'm saying, like, this is one of the first colored pencil on Pastelmat drawings I've ever done. Period, actually. I did do this tiny little pyrite was the first one I drew to just test it out. Pretty cute, but not quite as good.
Thank you everyone for joining me today as we walked through this real-time demo, and I hope you all had a wonderful time. And please reach out to me anytime through Messenger with any questions, and I would also love to see your final drawings. Thanks. Until next time.